Impact Wrestling getting ready for Slammiversary coming up just about 3.5 weeks from now on Saturday, July 17th. One of the big matches, which is always a fantastic match. It's an iconic match within Impact Wrestling. Ultimate X, where the X Division Championship will be defended by my guest at this time. Join me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. It is Josh Alexander. Follow him on Twitter at walking_weapon. Josh, how are you?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here too. I wanted to ask you. You kind of have this image as kind of the, gritty, tough, almost kind of like no nonsense, just. I hate the term, but almost like a shoot fighter. I assume you've developed that kind of organically. Talk about that development of your aspect of your career in wrestling.
Yeah, you're completely correct. It did happen organically. I've been wrestling for nearly 16 years. I think by the time Slammiversary rolls around, it'll be exactly 15 and a half, just about. And, when I started wrestling, I was doing anything I could do to get booked and try to get noticed. And at times it was stuff that I wasn't really comfortable doing or never what I wanted to do. I always looked up to guys like the Dynamite Kid or Eddie Guerrero or Kurt Angle and all these obvious people that you can see in my work if you watch me wrestle now. But at the time I wasn't really applying that. And I just made a decision a few years into my wrestling career to stop trying to be something I wasn't and just do what makes me happy. And that is, what happens inside that ring and just doing it at the highest level I possibly could. And, from then on for the last 12, 13 years, I've just really been working at that and perfecting it. And I've been weathered by pro wrestling. So I went from a good looking blonde kid with a full head of hair to a bald man with several scars and several injuries over the years at the hands of pro wrestling, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think that's where that look and that aura comes from.
I have to laugh because you say that, going from a blonde kid to bald with many scars. And I had to laugh because 25 years ago today, another that was a blonde kid and ended up being bald with many scars uttered a very famous catchphrase as we marked the birth of Austin 316. So do you like the fact that maybe you're following in the footsteps of, as I like to call him, the pride of Edna, Texas, Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I mean, he was the reason I got into pro wrestling, but he was the catalyst for me being a fan of this. So if I could draw any small comparison to one of the greatest of all time, I'll take it.
I would think so. And it looks like I've had the privilege of seeing you not only on Impact Wrestling, which you can see, by the way, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on Access TV, but I've seen you on the independent circuit. You've been here to Austin a few times. You came to Inspire Pro, and I was privileged enough to call a couple matches with you involved. You mentioned kind of the men that you kind of take inspiration from. When you look at your career today, does it lean towards one person or another? And it's kind of funny when you mention it because I think, and I don't want to generalize here, but a lot of Canadian wrestlers seem to lean towards the Hart family. You mentioned Dynamite Kid, but you also mentioned Kurt Angle. You mentioned Eddie Guerrero. But is there somebody you lean towards now?
I mean, the obvious comparisons that are drawn all the time lately, especially since my singles run here in Impact began 6 months ago, has been Kurt Angle. I apply the ankle lock. I use the ankle lock in many different variations as he did. I was an enormous fan of him. If I could draw any comparison to him that I would be happy about, it's just that intensity that he brought to the ring. I try to do that every single time, and I think he exemplified that more than anybody in wrestling history. But to answer the small part of that Hart family thing, I was trained by somebody that graduated from the Hart family dungeon. So all those basic fundamentals that all those guys, the Dynamite Kid, Owen, Brett, British Bulldog. All those guys had those basic fundamentals that made them special. I would like to think that I was trained in the same vein with the same kind of fundamentals. So I think that's where those comparisons are drawn as well.
So, in other words, you've got that, maybe 1 or 2 degrees of separation, but it's still, the lineage is still there, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And like, I can't overlook Bret Hart as being an inspiration as well. As a Canadian coming up, you look at these, much like you were putting over Stone Cold not long ago in your area. Bret Hart, for the entirety of Canada, was looked at as a hero, somebody that exemplified pro wrestling at the highest degree. So.
Absolutely. Talking with Josh Alexander, the X Division champion here on Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. A couple of recent moments that you've had since you won the X Division championship that have really seemed to catch a lot of people's attention and imagination for all the good reasons. First of all, let's talk about defending your title against El Phantasmo from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Talk for a moment about that and about, in general, the relationship that Impact Wrestling has with New Japan, to where we're seeing some of those New Japan wrestlers, like we just saw Kojima there. We're seeing some of them enter the Impact Zone.
Well, I think the relationship that Impact has established with New Japan and other companies as well, it just leaves the possibilities open for all these matches to happen that fans might not have otherwise been able to see. And I think that's something that would help us get attention on us. And that led to me and El Phantasmo, that being my first title defense. And when I looked at it, I've been a huge fan of Japanese wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling is obviously the pinnacle of that country's wrestling scene right now. And I saw it as an opportunity for the company of New Japan to get eyes on me for the first time, whereas they might not have before. So if I can get in there with one of the best juniors they have right now, and I can show up and show out, as they say, then maybe I can get some eyes on myself and build my brand, and in turn help build Impacts as well, right?
Absolutely. And plus you recently made an appearance on NJPW Strong, which was well received. So, I really do like the synergy there. I'm a big fan of New Japan as well. So, hey, anytime companies can collaborate and bring out the best wrestling for the fans, I'm all for. Another match that has received absolute critical acclaim was your Iron Man match with TJP, which it actually spanned 2 shows. You started on before BTI, and then it went into Impact Wrestling on Access TV. How much conditioning do you have to go through to do one of those Iron Man 60-minute, and in this case it was actually 60 plus because you had to go sudden death overtime? How much conditioning does that take to go that long in the ring?
Quite a bit. It's a lifestyle for me, honestly. I think I said it in one of the lead-up promos, and it wasn't just a line to say in a promo, but like, I'm kind of a maniac, especially since coming back from my neck injury 5 or 6 years ago. I want to be prepared and over-prepared for every situation. In my opinion, the Iron Man match is the absolute most grueling thing. Like, it's the most grueling test you can be put in as a pro wrestler, to know that there's a time on the clock and you cannot get out of that match until that time expires. So you're in there for good or for bad. So every day that I train, every time I step on a treadmill or get on, a set of stairs or elliptical, I'm training like I'm doing an Iron Man match every single time. And I think that's why I was able to, get in that match and produce at a high level, luckily. So.
Well, and as I said, I think both you and TJP deserve a ton of credit for not only getting through 60 plus minutes, but making that match so interesting and so there wasn't a lot of dead space. In other words, it was go for that entire time, and I think you guys deserve so much credit for that because you don't see that often in wrestling nowadays. So kudos to you guys. So Let's fast forward to Slammiversary. July 17th, you get to defend your X Division title in one of the iconic matches of Impact Wrestling. This is the match that, it goes all the way back to the Asylum days of TNA. you're doing Ultimate X. Not only are you in Ultimate X, you're in there with Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Rohit Raju, and Petey Williams. So not only you're in this incredible match, you got a really good slate of opponents there. So just reflect for a moment on being in such an iconic match and adding to the great history of the Ultimate X match, as well as defending it against 5 guys that are gonna just not gonna make it easy for you.
Well, it's no secret. I've said it many, many times in every interview I've ever done. I was a huge TNA Impact Wrestling fan. Like, that was the thing that made it a possibility for me to become a pro wrestler. I saw guys like Low-Ki and Samoa Joe and that entire X division, and they were really the genesis for me even attempting this dream, this impossible thing I thought when I was like 15 years old, tuning in for the first time on Wednesday nights. And that Ultimate X match is clearly the pinnacle of any, they call them gimmick matches or, marquee match that anything in all of pro wrestling could be for me. I look at that one, it's an Impact exclusive, and since I've signed an Impact, I've brought it up more than a few times to anybody that if there is going to be an Ultimate X, I would like to be in it. And, luckily it gets to happen. I get to check this one off my bucket list on July 17th, but obviously looking at the field of competitors, like you said, I have a lot to lose. I'm the one putting up my championship against 5 other, exceptional X Division wrestlers, and they all want to make a splash. They all want to win that championship. But at the same time, from the second I won that X Division championship, I've said that I want to go down as one of the greatest X Division champions of all time, up there with the likes of Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and all these other people. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to do extraordinary things. And I think the Iron Man was the first step, and I think Ultimate X is a perfect next step to solidify my lineage or my legacy or whatever you might want to call it as an X Division champion. So I have a lot to lose, but I also have a lot to gain.
I agree with that. You just mentioned you're a big fan of Impact and TNA. Was there an X Division match in the past or an Ultimate X match, that you think of when you're thinking about getting in that ring and having that Ultimate X match?
It's hard to think of any specifics. I remember the first one specifically with just Matt Bentley, Chris Sabin, and Frankie Kazarian. I just remember, how chaotic it was, but how the amount of innovation that can go into it. The first time seeing these ropes crossing the ring and just seeing all the different things you can do, because it adds just this whole different element to pro wrestling that you've never really seen before. You've seen people go on top of cages, but you've never seen people like have to hang and climb their ways and innovate that way. So I just think the possibilities are still like untapped. Whereas in most other matches, we've almost seen everything we possibly could by now, and innovation is hard to come by. So I don't know which one I'd look to. I just think the possibilities are endless to even go even further with it and make it even better.
I understand. It's going to be a hell of a match. Slammiversary, Saturday, July 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. It'll be on pay-per-view. You can also get it on Fight TV. They kick off the week with Wrestle Week on Monday, July 12th on Access TV. They're kicking it off with a screening of the Quentin Tarantino classic Pulp Fiction, hosted by the Good Brothers. Before I let you go, Josh, tell me who would be a perfect Vinny Vega and Jules that are on the Impact roster?
Ooh.
Or should I say, why would it be the Good Brothers?
Yeah, sure. You can just go with those two. Is there, yeah.
Okay.
we'll just go with the Good Brothers on that one.
I understand that. And, of course, as I mentioned, make sure you catch Impact Wrestling Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on Access TV. He is the X Division champion, Josh Alexander. Follow him on Twitter at walking_weapon. Josh, man, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I wish you all the best of luck. Best of luck at Slammiversary, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I was happy to do it. I'll do it anytime, man. Thank you.